Morning, everyone. I welcome everyone to this podcast. We have the distinct pleasure to have with us Mr. Subhashis Nath, the CEO and Dean of the Global Risk Management Institute or GRMI. In a world where unforeseen challenges are becoming the norm, GRMI is pioneering the development of world-class risk professionals. Let's see how they are doing so. It's an honor to have you with us, Mr. Nath. Welcome. How do you feel?
Always terrific to be back on this campus. DU holds a special place in one's heart, and LSR for sure. For the very simple reason that I always take pride in saying, back in my days, I was a winner at the Muralidharan Memorial Debate, which is this college's pride. So always great to be back at a place where the cafeteria of yours was a much sought after place back then, and one earned the right to be there through the Muralidharan Memorial. So terrific to be back again.
That's a beautiful nostalgia, sir. So, beginning from the very beginning, how were your college and school days like? Also, how were your initial days in the work corporate culture?
So it's a little bit of a interesting story, which I guess I can afford to now share, which is I was one of the least academically oriented person you could think of, and life's got a way to get things around for you, where I'm now leading an institute. I was extremely co-curricular oriented. Back in class 11 and 12, the first time we took our school festival out of the school premise because I didn't like the school auditorium. In college, which was Venkateshwara College DU, we didn't have an auditorium. So we took our festival out to the City Fort Auditorium and the Ames Auditorium. So I think my memories of good old high school and college days was one of being disruptive, but at the same time ensuring that you kind of didn't do too much injustice to acades. And what that really meant was that when I got into corporate life, that was a bit of a culture shock for me, because I was the college cultural secretary, I was the ECO president, the DEBSOC president, wasn't around in class much, and then suddenly you get into the rude shock of an absolute prim and proper Anderson corporate. It was a rude shock, but that's when you realize that, you got to do what you got to do, and owe a lot to that firm for making us what we are today.
Correct, sir. I think we are also very young people, very soon going out into the corporate world. So I think that is very, very enriching for us.
Okay, so my question would be, risk as a discipline often sounds very abstract to young professionals. And how would you prescribe undergraduate students like those at LSR who want to make a career into risk management or governance? What should they be looking at before getting into the field?
So I think it's a great question, because very honestly speaking, you got to demystify it down to the lowest denomination to ensure that it doesn't sound as abstract as the word sounds. So let me try and do that very simply, which is, risk is nothing but what can go wrong. It's as simple as that. Actually, one of the larger advisory firms uses that acronym WCWG, WCGW, what can go wrong. And that's precisely what a risk is. It's an uncertainty. It's no different from, for you students now, what can go wrong with your career decision. That's a risk, right? It's as simple as what can go wrong with any buying decision. And many of you buy mobiles. What do you base it on? You base it on camera and memory more than the actual sound quality, right? So if you get that wrong, that's a lot of money down the drain. Think of it now at a corporate level. That's what corporate leaders are doing. They're also taking decisions. Very often they could get it wrong. So risk management and risk is nothing but trying to figure out what can go wrong. How well can you be prepared to deal with it? If still things go wrong, how soon you detect it? And once you've detected it, are you prepared to deal with it fast enough? So really it's as simple as that. And very few of us in life are actually not doing it. It's just that when it gets to larger corporates, situations are far more complex. The number of variables increase. It's not just your business, it's the entire industry. It's not just the entire industry, it's the entire country. It's not just the entire country, it's the geopolitical risk of a shrinking world. So, what do students really have to do? I think very simple. The risk applies in any sphere, right? So, being a risk specialist doesn't only make you suited for a risk career, it actually makes you a professional who can question any decision from a 360-degree risk lens, because you suddenly realize that everything has an uncertainty element. So every decision that you take, be it a sales decision, be it a manufacturing decision, be it a new product decision, a new location strategy, there are uncertainties. How do you prepare yourself to not become a crystal ball gazer, but as I say, are you able to look around the corner and almost see what's impending, what's coming? And if you see it better or faster or clearer than your compete, likely to be successful. So I know it's possibly still not completely demystified, but it's as demystified a version of risk as I can sort of think of.
True, sir. So, your perspectives on risks and uncertainties are truly very, very enriching. Now, my question to you is, you have worked in industries, various industries. You probably might have seen a void or a gap in the skill set of people. So, what exactly started or prompted you to, come up with the idea of GRMI?
So I'm going to break this down into 2-3 parts actually. So the first and foremost thing is, think of, and this is not India, this is kind of a global phenomenon, which is across the world, education is always, higher education is always meant, it's either MBA or it's a CA or a CA equivalent. So it's a CA in India, a CA in UK, a CPA in the US. Predominantly, that's been the community that has, if you weren't going into medical and engineering, which is obviously specialized, then these have been the forms of education across. I myself happen to be a CA, I call myself a CA by mistake. I never wanted to be one, I never figured out why I did it, but I did it. And that's a story for a different day. Because I did CA to join Anderson, because Anderson was meant to be a lot of fun. That was the only reason I done CA. But in spite of being a CA myself, I realized that we are today risk professionals. And I jokingly say the biggest risk in the world is that all the risk professionals are untrained risk professionals. Because none of us till date have been trained on risk. We actually are pretenders who know more about risk and risk management than the peers. So therefore, we kind of come across as being sharper, better suited to be risk professionals. But none of us are educated any different. And having that background, and having recruited for all of about 25 years from the best of grad schools, best of B schools, best of engineering schools, what I'd realized was that everyone who came in knew nothing about risk. And that's not their fault, because our academic structures as such, or our academic curricula as such, it doesn't teach you anything which is specialized like risk. And therefore, as a consulting outfit or any organization, you are effectively trying to train people on a highly complex skill set as if you are running a training school. But what you realize that large corporates and consulting houses don't have that kind of time to sit and train, right? So effectively, what were we doing? We were doing injustice to our clients, sending greenhorns out to them, and which is why most companies hate consulting firms, saying they get consultants who come and learn at their cost. We were being unfair to the consultants, the young consultants, because we never taught them and we expect them to know stuff. And that was really the genesis of why I said, if we got fortunate enough or lucky enough to be quasi-successful, as I call it, isn't it only fair to try and give back and ensure that you create a talent pool for the future, which is far better equipped, which is going to be genuinely skilled and not be pretenders, and therefore actually it creates a much stronger ecosystem, because end of the day I do believe that a nation is actually as strong as its talent, and therefore there might be much larger initiatives that you hear and talk about, but shaping talent to me is a far more, or at least not now, even 10 years back when I was conceptualizing this, I back from then itself felt that shaping talent was is a far more effective, powerful contribution than just about anything else. So I never thought about NGO being my way of giving back. To me, it always was, if I could shape the talent of future, I think I'd be doing the country and the ecosystem a lot of it. That's truly a very honest genesis. Yep.
Okay, so my question is that you have partnered with various organizations for placements and projects. How do you think that these collaborations shape the curriculum at GRMI and also the student exposure?
So if you look at it, what does GRMI really do for students, right? It's no different from any other educational institution you think of it. It's a one-year program. So the difference versus some of the standard MBAs is it's a 1 year versus 2 year. But is that a difference? I guess no, because you've got an ISB and MDI, for example, which are also 1 year. But I think where we really made it extremely different is that we well and truly brought together corporate and academia. Now, what do I mean by that? About 70% of our faculty are all current practitioners of what they teach. So which means we've got heads of risk, heads of audit, partners, directors out of the big four consulting firms come and teach. Now what does it do for the student? For the student, what they're actually going through is not at all theoretical. It's farthest removed from being books. It's actually practitioners and professionals almost narrating stories to them as to what do they do day to day. Now when you learn something almost through a story narrative, and when you can relate it to what you see happening around you in companies. So if we narrated to you the story of how Nestle dealt with what they had to do with Maggie, or if you got to hear of how the Yes Bank story unfolded, that you all can relate to it. And there is no need to memorize. It just sounds stuff. It's stuff that sticks to you. So I think what we really do is we call it experiential learning, which is we bring in a huge amount of focus on experiential learning. That's point one. The second part of it is I've always held that you are as good as you can communicate. So we're massively focused on communication and enhancement of it. And how do we do that? We do that by ensuring that almost every kid has to go through no less than 20 to 30 presentations in a year, minimum, some more than that. Now that takes away a lot of your fear of speaking. Plus, we overlay personality development and communication through the course of the year because these take time to improve and get better. So I think for students, it's not because it's an institute that we conceptualize. I think it's a school that we truly believe transforms the students. And I think that was always what we were meant to be. We said we want to have an impact. And impact is really when a student leaves a better version of themselves from where they came in. As long as that's done, I think we're happy. And I think that's really what we are as an institute.
Sir, I think your opinion on academia, research, on corporate are truly very insightful. Now speaking further on this, we know that businesses and education sectors these days are becoming increasingly globalized, and all of these have become truly interdependent on each other. So how do you make sure that the curriculum of GRMI is up to date and that the students are abreast with each and every changes taking place around the globe?
Fantastic question. I honestly wish more students appreciate the value of what you precisely asked, which is how do you keep the curriculum sort of up to date and how do you deal with the shrinking global world? Because if you really think of it, marketing's been taught from a toddler for the last 4 decades. Unfortunately, marketing's evolved dramatically, right? But the best of schools still use that. And our view is that it doesn't work in today's day and age anymore. It's an age of specialization, and which is one of the reasons you heard me say that 70% of our faculty are visiting. Because if you don't know how the last cyber attack was prevented as of yesterday, the faculty is out of date. The students are hearing dated learning. And therefore, the minute we pull that practitioner or professional out of their corporate role into teaching, they're redundant. And I say it from my own personal example. I chaired a 20-member global controllers roundtable right before I gave up my corporate stint. on a topic as complex as double materiality and sustainability. It's as complex as it gets. And the general feedback was, wow, that was one of the most sort of knowledge-wise intense sessions we've done. But if you ask me today, I am no longer capable of doing that. So if after 30 years of consulting and only risk, all it takes is 2 years for me to get outdated from the more recent things, it just proves that you cannot have faculty which is so removed from day-to-day reality being really successful in super specialized areas like ours. All of you talk about AI. Nobody today can profess to know enough about AI. So if you don't know enough about AI, you don't even know what is the difference between AI and Gen AI, how do you know what can go wrong in AI? And what can go wrong is risk. So how do you know what's a risk in AI? Who's going to teach that? So for us, that's how we ensure that people who teach are firstly completely clued on. How else do we do it? You should look at our global advisory board. Our global advisory board has people who are from Stern University. There are people who are CEOs and strategy officers of listed companies in the New York Stock Exchange. There are leaders who've been global transformation leaders of $125 billion plus conglomerates. Why are they on our global advisory board? You'd say, what's their role in an academic institute? The only reason we have that is that they are able to almost tell us what the world's seeing. They are part of so many more forums where they're talking about what's the next thing that people are worried about. And you have to understand that it takes time to curate curriculum. So if you get a head start of 12 to 18 months, then you are able to curate that curriculum and stay ahead of the curve and yet remain completely contextually relevant. So it takes a lot to stay up to date, have faculty which knows what it's up to date. And guess what? We love the fact that we have the flexibility and freedom to do what we feel like as an institute that we are, not bound by a ton of restrictions that I know traditional institutions have to follow. Every change means 24 months of approval process sometimes. We could change in a matter of 6 months. So it's exciting. It's what really makes us different.
That's very insightful, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so you have been associated with Conquest, and that is our annual academic event. How do you see that these collaborations of student-led academic events add value to the firm, and how do you think that there's this one piece of advice that you would like to give to young professionals who want to make a career into this environment?
So I think there is, and if you go back to why we set this institute up, this institute's all about a give back. You have to understand this came after a bunch of us felt that we've been super fortunate to get to work with some of the better minds in the world. As I always keep reminding at various forums, we got lucky in some ways because of our exposure that we got to work with 6 of the Fortune 50 companies. I'm not sure there are too many professionals in the country who can actually claim that they owned relationships with 6 of the Fortune 50. We did that, we delivered that. So it was always about how do we give back, how do we ensure that others who possibly haven't had this opportunity also have a crack at it. So events like Conquest, for us, it's an opportunity to do 2 things. One, allow young minds to organize events having the peace of mind, like I mentioned on the last Conquest, but guys, don't worry about your funding. Because I've been a college student myself, I've done it in a less branded Venki, it's a known name now. Back then, people almost didn't know who we were. We were joked about as being Tirupati Tirumala Devasthanam Shri Venkateshwara College and not Venki. So having come from that background, I knew that fundraising isn't the easiest thing. And therefore, whenever any firm, any institute spoken to us onstream, I've said, don't think of it as giving us funds. Think of it as you freeing up time to do what you want to do. So that's how we view it. The other very important part is it's our way of continuing to spread awareness in the grad community that there is a need to break the mold. Stop thinking that life ends with 3 or 4 career options. And therefore, these events are events where we want people to know that there are options. It is not just about doing your actuarial science or MBA and CA and and that's where life ends. There is much more to it, and therefore that's really why we think these events are extremely meaningful for us. It meets the objective of us trying to give back. And if you say, what's the one message? But one message continues to remain repetitive, unfortunately, which is do what you're happy with. Because when passion and work come together, you hit bliss point. Bliss point is the name of the Eco Fest of my alum, which is Venki. But it's not, I don't use that word bliss point for that reason. But it is truly bliss point. When work and passion meet, it's bliss point indeed. But for that, you've got to be bold enough to challenge the run-of-the-mill career paths. You've got to be able to go out there and say, you know what, I'm going to try this one. So what if it doesn't work? If you are a sharp enough mind, you'll go back to traditional if the non-traditional doesn't work. But at least go out there, give it a crack. You'll feel good. You'll feel good, and you'll never repent the fact that you never did it. You know, back in my early corporate days, I had set up an event management company while in ANS. I loved it. We did a rock show, we did a fashion show, we did a dandiya night, we did a...
Thank you so much, sir, for providing a holistic picture of risk as a career. Now, moving forward to the last question. And a lot of students are really interested in knowing this because a lot of students look forward to joining GRMI in the future. What's your big idea or long-term vision for GRMI?
So let me start with the boldest statement that I've always made, and which I actually told the board as well, which is, our board and strategy board once asked me that very similar question. So who do you want to be? So are you guys going to be the Harvard of risk? And my impromptu response was, never do I want to be a Harvard of risk. We want to be the GRMI of risk, which is when you think of the word risk, people who aspire to be a GRMI. That's really what this is going to be all about. We are today the world's only institute which teaches risk for an entire year. We are absolutely confident that no one's going to replicate this, not because of any other reason, but because it takes three things to come together. One, you need to have domain yourself. Two, you've got to have access to faculty who are absolutely the who's who of the areas that they teach in. And for that, you need to be from the community. So no academic institute can be that community. Three, you've got to have a passion for teaching, which is rare. You don't find people in consulting in this domain with that much of passion. And four, which is extremely important, have it in you to give up the security of a hefty credit in the bank at the end of the month. If you were to find those four together, you possibly find another founder who can set up something like this. And I really don't think it's going to happen. When I set up Access Risk Consulting back in September 2004, for 18 years I tracked it. There wasn't a second. We were the only India for Globe risk consulting model. We crossed the $100 million revenue. So when I started Access Risk Consulting back in September 2004, we were a fledgling back then. We were India for Globe consulting firm. And when I last left it after tracking it and leading it for all of 18 years, we were over $100 million practice, over 1,200, 1,300 people. Right through, everyone said it was a no-brainer that one should be able to replicate that model. But the reality is in 18 years, no one did. And that's the reason why I feel so confident that it's going to be tough for someone else to replicate this. So that's one part. But I think if you really ask me what's the vision is, here is an institute which will absolutely certainly build some of the most high impact business leaders of the future. And there's a reason for it. Because you have to understand that a business leader, end of the day, is there only because they're better at dealing with uncertainties. They have to take better decisions every time as they grow. They need to be well-informed decisions. And they've got to give themselves a competitive edge. For doing all of that, at the heart of it, you have to be an expert who can deal with uncertainties, who can, as I said, almost predict an uncertainty, and there are technical words for it. It's called the known unknown. And actually there's a word called unknown unknown. So we intend to build leaders who are geared up to become those who can deal with that uncertain world, deal with the known unknowns, and therefore they will be the future business leaders. So I'm very confident. Our alums are already proving that. We already have alums who are at regional cyber leader level of businesses as big as GE Aerospace. We already have managers in the big four in a short span of 5 to 6 years of the career. So it's just a beginning. I'm very certain that will come a day when almost every successful risk professional has to be an alum from here, because it's a no-brainer. When you are the only institute, right? Today, you all will say you are LSRites, right? But there are many more grad schools. People say I'm from IIM. There are already 22 grads, 22 or whatever number of IIMs. The reality is we'll just have one GRMI. I'll never do a second branch of this. And therefore, and we'll be the only school. And therefore, give it 10 years. You will be talking about 2,000, 3,000 students who are the ones who are going to lead the risk world, and they're all going to be GRMIs. So the enormity of what we are very confident we're going to create out of this is something which I don't believe anyone's even able to fathom right now, because no one's thinking that large. You know, when you start churning out 300 every year, and you give it 10 years, you've got 3,000 leaders. 3,000 risk leaders from the same institute. What do you think happens when people are in a meeting room? We will just have GRMI alums. So that's really my vision, and I always set this up for a legacy reason, because, and there's a very specific sort of personal emotion attached to it. The firm that built me was Anderson. The firm's no more. The firm that I built, Access Risk Consulting, I was not financially strong enough to be a financial investor. I was a sweat equity guy who set it up. I don't have a control on it not being sold. We sold it, and I still continue to build it because I was passionate about it. Most people after selling would leave. I didn't, because I was committed to building it. But this time around, it's been built with no external investor who can influence that decision. This is for keeps. This is going to be an institute that's going to be a legacy which says, we transform the world of business. So that's really the big vision, and which is why I feel that every student who's believed in this institute, we are hugely sort of grateful to them. There's a massive sense of gratitude. A massive sense of gratitude to every faculty member who's tirelessly put in hours teaching even batches of 6, 2 and 5 students. To our board and strat board members, each one of whom can easily sit and charge any amount that they wish. But they've all sort of, for the longest time, done this pro bono. So yeah, and to the world of recruiters who believed in us when we started off. But I do think there are good reasons why I believe that we will be an institute that leaves a mark for the longest time. Thank you.
So the vision looks very, very strong to me, and I'm sure it looks stronger to all of us watching this podcast as well. So just a very super quick question to you now. If you were to describe GRMI in 3 words, what would they be?
Passion, numero uno, envy. I want to take a minute to sort of explain each of those words in a minute, no longer.
Especially envy.
Passion, because everyone in that setup is in that setup because of their passion. There's no other reason any faculty member, any board member, any strategy board member, any of our global advisory body members or a CAD council are in it. There's nothing in it financially for them. So that's passion. Numero uno, because that's the only thing that I believe in. We can't be anything else. And envy, because everyone knows that this has to do well. And yet, it's nearly impossible for anyone else to replicate this. You've got to be envious of something that you see as a no-brainer of a success, and you still just can't figure out how to replicate it. It has to cause envy. And that's why I say those 3 words possibly define this.
The words fit very well, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you
Nath,
so much for having me, and it was an absolute delightful experience as always with bright young minds from a college like yours. I've always, as I said, start by saying always loved this institute. Always happy to be
So
back
all
here.
of us have gained a lot of insights from your discussion
you.
and every idea that you mentioned here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you
sir.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nath, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today and sharing your deep insights on the world world of risk management and how GRMI is shaping the future leaders in the domain. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you gained valuable insights into the world of risk management. Thank you.